Welcome to the Roy Morgan Weekly Update. I'm Julian McCran, the Roy Morgan Poll Manager, stepping in for Roy Morgan CEO Michelle Levine, who is unavailable. If a federal election were held now, the result would be a hung parliament and too close to call, with the coalition on 50.5% compared to the ALP on 49.5% on a two-party preferred basis. The ALP or coalition would require the support of minor parties and independents to form a minority government, the latest Roy Morgan survey finds. The Albanese government regained lost ground this week after the long-awaited Stage 3 tax cuts provided a boost in take-home income for millions of working Australians. There was also a return to relative normality for the government after a week of infighting about Palestinian statehood led to the resignation of former Labor Senator Fatima Payman. Senator Payman is now an independent senator from Western Australia. The changes in the two-party preferred results were driven by real changes in the primary vote. Primary support for the ALP increased 2.5% to 31%, while the coalition dropped 2% to 37.5% this week. Support for the Greens was down 1% to 12.5%. The Greens played a major role in Senator Payman's resignation from Labor when she supported their resolution calling for the recognition of the State of Palestine. However, although the Greens were able to score a political win against Labor, there appears to be a growing perception in the community the party is playing games with the issue rather than looking for real solutions. Support for the Greens is now at its lowest for nearly 5 months, since late February. Support for One Nation this week was unchanged at 5%, support for other parties was up 0.5% to 5%, and support for independents was unchanged at 9%. Roy Morgan government confidence improved only marginally this week, up 1 point to 74, so it's still over 25 points below the neutral level of 100. A large majority of 56% of Australians say the country is going in the wrong direction. Only 30% say the country is heading in the right direction. ANZ Roy Morgan consumer confidence was virtually unchanged at 78.5 this week, so still more than 20 points below the neutral level of 100. Looking longer term, consumer confidence has now spent a record 76 weeks below the level of 85, almost 18 months. This week, inflation expectations increased 0.2% to 5.1%. The ANZ Roy Morgan Inflation Expectations Indicator now shows Australians expect annual inflation to be 5.1% per annum over the next 2 years. Looking longer term, inflation expectations have been remarkably stable over the last 7 months and have stayed within a narrow band of 4.8 to 5.3% for 32 weeks since early December last year. And finally this week to the Australian employment markets. There is relatively good news with the labour force in June, with employment in Australia remaining near an all-time high above 14.3 million. Although virtually unchanged on a month ago, employment is up a massive 673,000 from a year ago. Importantly, the surge in employment is having an impact on unemployment. The latest Roy Morgan headline real unemployment figure for June is down 0.4% to 8.3%. and equivalent to 1.3 million Australians, down 62,000 on a month ago. This is the lowest rate of unemployment for nearly 2 years since September 2022. In addition to the unemployed, there are also 1.4 million people who are underemployed, 9% of the workforce, and that's an increase of 65,000 from May. So the overall figures show total unemployment and underemployment, what we might call workforce underutilisation, was 17.3% of the workforce in June. 2.7 million people, virtually unchanged on a month ago. So as we have said for over a year now, the monthly movements are within a broader context of the rapidly increasing population and workforce. There are several factors impacting the Australian labour force, and the largest is surging population growth. Australia's population aged 14 plus, largely the working age population, has increased by a near record 755,000 compared to a year ago, to over 22.6 million. And our workforce is now over 15.6 million and up 404,000 from a year ago. And this has led to more Australians being employed. Now 14,307,000 Australians are employed. That is 673,000 more than a year ago. Most of these new jobs are in full-time employment, up 429,000, and there are also many new part-time jobs, up 244,000. The good news is that these new jobs are having an impact on unemployment and underemployment. This is the first time in June that since the end of the pandemic restrictions in late 2022, that both unemployment and underemployment are now lower than a year ago. Unemployment is down 269,000 from a year ago, and underemployment is down 12,000. And that's a wrap. Thanks for your interest this week in Roy Morgan's latest results, and Michelle will be back next week to bring you the most up-to-date readings on consumer confidence, inflation expectations, mortgage stress, and voting intentions in Australia. Subscribe free to our Roy Morgan YouTube channel for all the latest political, economic, and market research data and insights. Thank you.